Alright, stop me if you've heard this one before, but I alluded to this in the 2012 MacBook Air video, and, well, let's show this thing off, why don't we? Because when the world's in a pandemic, what we do is make videos. On that, I urge you to check the description because, yeah, I wanted to talk about how it's been affecting me here, but that's something I've tried to put into video form and I just can't do it. It's just a hard subject to talk about, and I'd rather just do it in text, which is, medium I'm better at conveying my thoughts in. So I'm going to put that down in the description. Anyway, let's get into this guy here. This is a early 2014 MacBook Air 11-inch. And this thing is in substantially better nick than the other one, because the only real bit of damage is right here and on the bottom pan. Now, on the bottom pan, you can just replace this with another pan, so it's not terribly bad to have it on the bottom. Unfortunately, this came pretty stripped down, so what happened was the bottom pan was just on, barely, and all the bottom screws had been removed. The friend who helped me buy this actually bought a set of screws, but they were for the 13-inch MacBook Air. Now, the 13-inch MacBook Air takes slightly bigger screws, so in this case, these ones worked fine. This one was a little iffy, but I just put it in there as far as it would go without, over-torquing it. And this one did not fit at all. So I'm gonna have to get some proper screws for this thing. This thing is in pretty good condition, despite the stripped down state it came in. It also came without an SSD. The friend who helped me buy this also bought an SSD, but those who know their MacBooks will know that there is a problem here. This is not a PCIe SSD, this is SATA. So, Ryan had to do me a huge solid, and I'm glad he did, because this started happening right before shit really started hitting the fan with COVID-19. He ran over here and dropped off the SSD to his 2013 MacBook Pro, because I asked him if he would lend it to me just to get through this, and he doesn't really use the 2013 as a main computer. It's just kind of there. So he was like, yeah, sure, just get it back at some point. So major shout outs to him for doing me a solid there. But there was another problem. This thing wasn't just missing the SSD and bottom pan. It was missing the power supply too. And I got this thing this Monday, which I'll try to superimpose the date on the video because I can't remember it off the top of my head. But this Monday is when everything started getting closed down. Counties up north of me started implementing shelter-in-place orders and ordering businesses to close. So I got this, and I know FedEx is not going to be closing down because they're considered an essential service. I was like, okay, I want to get this thing because I don't want to have this thing get stuck in purgatory when everything gets locked down. Missing the power supply was a huge one because there's no way I can get a power supply right now. Pretty much everything that is non-essential is closed, so I can't just waltz in somewhere and grab a power supply. Plus, they're too expensive for me at current, but that's when the friend who bought me this said, hey, wait a minute, there exist adapters, right? Because what I had on hand was one of these guys. This is, standard MagSafe one. And it's like, they have adapters for those, right? I figured it's been a while since anybody's bought one of those. So I had low hopes, but the Best Buy in my town actually had one in stock, so I went over there and it was empty as all hell, which is nice for me, and sure enough, they had one on the shelf and it was only $10, so picked it up, here it is, just goes on, looks like crap. Then, not long after, a friend of mine who works one of the repair shops around here dropped off a real deal MagSafe 2 because I had asked him if he had one before this was pointed out, and so now I'm actually in pretty good condition with regards to power adapters. Looks a little janky, but it gets the job done. So, like the 2013, we have two USB ports, one on each side, MagSafe 2, headset port, but no SD card slot, unfortunately, and a Thunderbolt port. Not that I plan on using SD with this thing anyway, really, but just kind of an unfortunate thing. So let's go ahead and open this thing up. Alright, and here's the MacBook Air. Now, the keyboard is in really good shape. There's a little bit of gloss on it, but not a whole hell of a lot. Now, this thing, when I got it, smelled strongly of perfume, and from what I was told, these MacBooks came out of a school system that was depreciating them and moving to Chromebooks or something similar. So I'm gonna guess this thing was owned by a teacher because it just stank of perfume when I got it. But what's kind of interesting is this machine is not exactly stock. If we go to About This Mac, it's got a special little thing in it. Now, as you may be able to see as I fudge the zoom, this is an i7 MacBook Air, and that's a BTO option, I believe. And it's got 8 gigs of RAM, which is another BTO option. So this machine was pretty much loaded out of the gate, which is really cool because this machine effectively was only about $200 and something, if I remember correctly. So my friend is letting me pay it back slowly. And actually, in light of the whole virus thing, he's like, don't worry about me right now. Just take care of you and yours before worrying about me. So, hey, it's not, like, shout outs to the people who are like, hey, don't worry about shit like that. Just take care of yourself. Anyway, let's get back to the MacBook Pro. Displays, it is running the crunchy 1366 by 768 resolution. But in this case, I think it's okay because we're on an 11-inch display here. Now, the storage is absolutely insane, because as you can see here, we've got 500 gigs of storage, but this is temporary. I'm getting an SSD, hopefully getting an SSD soon. It will be the permanent one that's going in here. It's going to be about 128 gigs, but as of right now, this is what I'm working with, and I have more space than I'll ever need. Anyway, let's go ahead and just get back to it. It's really all there is to see about this. Oh wow. It actually made the other wallpaper, the other iPad wallpaper, my second desktop. But what can I say? There's like nothing really to talk about here. It's a damn good machine for what it is. And what's kind of cool is this thing in Geekbench scores like, I think like a 750 single core and a 1400 or so multi-core, and in MacBook Air terms, this thing takes even the 2017 to Applebee's, which is really, really nice, because it's like, cool, I have a machine that basically performs better than a 2017 in pure CPU grunt, and I believe this thing can get within spitting distance of the 2018 Air, but, you know, I'll trade a little performance for having a good keyboard. I guess we need to do the good old coconut battery check. And as we can see, this thing is actually in somewhat better condition than the outgoing MacBook Air that I featured in, well, I think like a video ago. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. But we're currently at 88.6%, if I'm reading that correctly from this odd angle. And it will kind of float between 88 and 90% as the battery discharges. And this thing has 500 and something cycles on it, which is like ridiculous. The other one had only 100, so I'm guessing the last MacBook was just used a lot plugged in, because, you know, if you don't use your MacBook and you just leave it plugged in all the time, that will degrade the battery, because it's not good to keep these things fully charged all the time. Anyway, as much as I like this machine, however, I'm not planning on buying any new machines, but I did want to address that Apple did just release a 2020 MacBook Air, and that thing looks like it has all the right things done to it. It has the new keyboard that doesn't suck. They actually doubled the internal storage on the base model up to 256, which gives me hope that, you know, with iPhones this year, Apple's gonna not be jerks and actually give us a workable set of storage for our minimum, because yeah, I have 64 gigs on here right now, but you know what? I do feel kind of a little cramped. I mean, it's workable, but I have to really cut down my music going onto this thing, which is why it's synced to this, because this has my minimal music library on it. So I'm hopeful the new MacBook Air is kind of Apple signaling that they, like, okay, we'll finally give you a bump for the base model. Nonetheless, if I had the money, I would actually probably consider buying one, as much as Catalina sucks right now, and that's why I'm running Mojave on this. But I'm hoping whatever macOS next is going to be comes out and is much better than Catalina was. I'm kind of curious as what they're going to call the next macOS version, because I've looked around Catalina Islands and I don't see anything they could really name it that has something to do with, like, you know, how they go leopard, snow leopard, lion, mountain lion, that kind of thing, and they kind of broke it with Mavericks, but nonetheless, actually they broke it with Mojave too, if you think about it, but this is just needless blabber at this point. I've already said what I really need to say on this thing. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.